Okay, listen. I know that this type of video has been done before. So before you start saying, but Jared, so many other people have done it. I've had the script written since April of this year, so I need to get this video out as soon as possible, essentially. Just know I'm fully aware that other people have done this type of video, but I wanted to put my own spin on it. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this video. And we're going to find out why Cyberpunk failed.
Welcome to the gameplay demo walkthrough of CD Projekt Red's upcoming title, Cyberpunk 2077. A narrative-driven, open-world RPG set in a dark version of the future. Before we start, a small but important disclaimer. The gameplay you're about to see is from a work-in-progress version of the game. Everything you see is potentially subject to change.
I just got out of a 45-minute demo, and if you guys are wondering what I thought, wow, that's what I think.
I guess we pass.
Yes.
We are diving right into it.
Let's go. People want to know answers.
Okay, I'm going. So, from a level design point of view, for us it's really important to create these districts, the 6 ones that we have in Night City, to be as different as possible without making it unbelievable.
We've greatly enhanced our crowd and community system to create the most believable city in any open-world game to date.
Cyberpunk 2077 sales. We were bound to see sales figures sooner rather than later. We have known that the game had sold 8 million units in pre-orders alone.
God damn! Here we are. Alright. But wait a minute. I'm not in the right attire. Oh. What's that? We got official Cyberpunk merch? Including that merch? Oh yeah, brother. I don't know what this intro was at all. But hopefully y'all enjoy it. Alright. Enough messing around, alright, you little hooligans. In 2013, CD Projekt Red unveiled their new game, Cyberpunk 2077. The game had a fancy new trailer showing the dark, mysterious, gritty world. Many were excited and ready for this new project that CD Projekt Red were unveiling. Hi, my name is Jared, and today I'll be talking about the unfortunate reality of Cyberpunk 2077, and how it started and where it all came down to be the unfortunate downfall of the entire game itself. So sit back and relax as I take you from when CD Projekt Red was at the top of the world to the fall from grace. We're now finally here at chapter 1. Now we're starting to get into the good stuff, alright? This is the good stuff. This is where it all starts happening, where it starts, you know, playing into the whole advertising thing and whatnot, and, you know, everything gets really exciting for the entire game itself. So anyways, let's jump right into it without further ado. Here is chapter 1 of the Cyberpunk video. After the announcement trailer, we would hear nothing from CD Projekt Red at all. All we would have was the announcement trailer and some bits and pieces of information here and there all over the internet from different interviews and resources and everything like that. But so far, we wouldn't really hear anything from CD Projekt Red themselves. They kept this a secret because obviously they were working on The Witcher 3 for a very long period of time, but they were having people, you know, pre-development, storyboarding, just changing everything for Cyberpunk itself. So they were working on the game, but they weren't actively developing it until after The Witcher 3. But overall, it wasn't anything that told us about the game or the story itself. The next real time that we would see Cyberpunk was at E3 2018, at the end of the Microsoft showing. I'm not sure if any of you remember that. I remember that. That's actually where I got really excited for the game. I remember watching the trailer back in 2013, but this is where Cyberpunk really started having a hype train, everybody being excited for it. In the trailer, it would show the different places, people, buildings, and just the entire world and lore of Cyberpunk that CD Projekt Red were willing to show the entire world. It would eventually bring the spark back that everybody had in 2013, all the excitement, everything that we were hoping for was in this trailer, and everybody, I would say pretty much a large majority of people were really happy with how the trailer went, essentially. But not only did they drop an amazing trailer in 2018, they dropped a 48-minute gameplay demo showing the entire world of Cyberpunk. Not just a trailer, but a 48-minute gameplay demo of the entire thing. So essentially from gameplay, the shooting mechanics, the RPG mechanics, pretty much anything you could think of CD Projekt Red were showing in this 48-minute gameplay trailer. In 2018, CD Projekt Red would show the most amount of information for Cyberpunk 2077. This is when the advertisements really started popping up. Tons of people were getting interested in the game, such as myself, as I said before. Everybody was really getting intrigued and interested in this brand new world that CD Projekt Red was now officially unveiling to the general public. And it's insane that they were showing not only a brand new trailer for the game, but on top of that, a 48-minute gameplay demo. And it was really showing that CD Projekt Red was putting all this love, care, and compassion in the game. Or were they? Inevitably, after E3 2018 would end, this is when Cyberpunk would kind of go dark. CD Projekt Red wasn't really talking about it all that much, so we wouldn't really hear anything for a whole nother year until E3 2019. Then another year would pass, and eventually we'd make it to the cycle again where E3 would officially show up again, you know, everybody's favorite gaming convention. Oh my god, it's the greatest. Absolutely no cringe whatsoever at E3, alright? This is a serious ordeal, okay? No cringe, alright? It's the best gaming outlet every single year, you know, all of us look forward to. Definitely not because of the cringe. Then of course, you know, CD Projekt Red were back, and, you know, they were showing off more stuff for Cyberpunk, and, you know, it's absolutely cringe. Holy shit. Oh my god. No way. It can't be. It's motherfucking Keanu Reeves. Oh my god, it's him. He got me Red Dead game. But anyways, Keanu Reeves would be one of the biggest selling points for Cyberpunk 2077. Obviously, because the entire internet loves Keanu Reeves. I mean, like, who doesn't love Keanu Reeves except for people who don't love Keanu Reeves? But, you know, I love Keanu Reeves. So this was obviously a huge selling point for Cyberpunk. This got a lot more people excited into the game because it's Keanu Reeves. Who doesn't want to see Keanu Reeves in a video game? Being a badass character, Johnny Silverhand? Hell yeah, dude. He looks cool as shit in the game, alright? But not only that, there were a ton of memes, obviously, during that time. I still love them to death. I still love all those memes. But on top of that, Keanu Reeves would officially announce the very first release date of Cyberpunk 2077. Obviously, by this point in 2019, that felt like a very, very long time. But as some of us know, that wasn't a very long time, as the foreseen consequences of, you know, future stuff that would happen, obviously. Now, obviously, the countdowns would start because no other game mattered, alright? Everybody was just excited for Cyberpunk. It was Cyberpunk, Cyberpunk, Cyberpunk all the time. Everybody was talking about this game. I could not speak to a single person that was not talking about Cyberpunk, alright? This was one of the biggest games that was ever going to release. It was easily one of the most anticipated games of all time, and this was really sparking the hype train going on further. CD Projekt Red was going full force on Cyberpunk 2077, obviously. This is one of the most anticipated games of all time, and they want to keep that hype train going, so they're going completely all in, and they weren't going to stop, not even once. Many people expected a release in April, but unfortunately CD Projekt Red would later delay the game in January. But of course, you know, this can only mean one thing, that the game would actually be worked on. CD Projekt Red was actually focusing on making the game great, correct? Or so we thought. But in the long run, everybody thought the delays were, of course, to work on the game, right? That's what CD Projekt Red has been saying time and time again, that these delays were primarily for working on the game because they wanted the game to be as polished as possible, essentially, for release. They don't want to release a broken mess or anything like that. Like, come on, they wouldn't do that to us. The game would be delayed a total of 3 times. The very first time in January, as I said, for the April release, the second time in June for the September release, then eventually for the final time in October for the November release. CD Projekt Red would later push back the game till December 10th of 2020, where they officially felt like the game was ready. And of course, for the final delay, their excuse was, of course, for performance on last gen. I was hoping for this last delay for the game to essentially iron out all the issues that the last gen systems had. But of course, with the October delay, this would be the closest that we would get to officially playing Cyberpunk. This is the closest yet. This would be the final time that CD Projekt Red would delay the game. They made that clear. Even though that they said the June delay, when they were going to push it to November, was going to be the last time that they were going to delay the game, they were 100% certain that the game was going to come out on December 10th, no matter what. This is the final time that they were delaying the game. And of course, we were getting so close to playing one of the most anticipated games of all time. Many were ready, Many were scared, but only time would tell. Leading up to the world release of Cyberpunk 2077, reviewers were not allowed to show their own gameplay of what they captured throughout their entire experiences. This is because CD Projekt Red had enacted a review embargo against all reviews until after the game released. But nobody really knew why this was the case. You would think after pretty much an entire year of delays, you would think that the game would be ready to ship and launch. So why would it be an issue for these reviewers to show their own gameplay? It makes no sense. The game can't be that bad, right? If they would put an embargo, maybe they just want people to enjoy the game. You know, when the game comes out, we can all play it and have a great experience. You know, it should be fine. Let's take a look at some gameplay. Oh my god. What is that? What is that? So, that makes a lot of sense on why CD Projekt Red did not want people showing gameplay. The worst offender for Cyberpunk 2077 was obviously the PS4 version. I think a lot of people know that. I played on the PS4 version, alright, the base PS4 version. Easily the worst version of Cyberpunk, alright, yeah, I played on that, alright. Thank you, CD Projekt Red, for giving me such a terrible experience, alright. Thank you, means a lot. Overall, the experience on the PS4 meant bad frame rate, terrible pop-in, and overall bad graphics. And most importantly, it was a lackluster experience on the base PS4 and Xbox One. Last gen users got the bad end of the stick, essentially. Pretty much next gen and PC users got the best version of the game. Obviously, that kind of makes sense because running things on almost 10-year-old hardware, running a game from 2020, you know, on 10-year-old hardware, is going to be a bad idea. If I were to go over every single issue that this game had, this video would be over an hour long, so I'm going to try not doing that. So I'm going to go over some of the promises that CD Projekt Red made. So, for example, buyable apartments, branching story, except for one mission, that one mission being the one where you go with Jackie to go steal that robot for Dexter Deshawn, and it kind of has an alternating story, so depending on what you choose, it can go differently. That is the only time throughout the entire game that it has an alternate path, depending on what you choose, that will completely change the game. Unless we're talking about the endings, that is the only time your choices will have an impact on the story. So that wasn't in the game. The impactful story or branching story is not there. Another one being corrupt police. In an old CD Projekt Red interview, they said that the game was going to feature some sort of corrupt police where you would be able to pay them off, or they would be able to tell you information, essentially bribing them to help you out in some sort of way. That was also not in the game. Another one was NPC daily routines. Oh boy, I wonder how that one went. Yeah, so essentially CD Projekt Red also promised that the NPCs would have over like 1,000 daily routines, and it would be super immersive and everything like that. Yeah, the NPCs and AI barely work in this game. You shoot in the air and they like disappear. Yeah, that's a thing. Life paths are another one that they constantly talked about and advertised about how you would be able to choose your life path and that would alter the story in some way. This doesn't do anything to the story except give you a different intro, kind of tutorial, introducing you to the game. It gives you a different story, but after you complete the intro where it gives you that life path option, it shows you the entire gameplay. That is the only point where that matters. The only other point that the life paths actually matter is in dialogue, and that's it. There's no other point in the game where your life path matters. It's essentially just a different intro for the game. Wall running was another one, and essentially this isn't too big of an issue for me, but it was another feature that they promised, and it was in the 48-minute gameplay demo where you could see V running across the wall. That was not in the game, but I don't think it's that big of an issue. Just kind of sad that it didn't make it in. Trauma Team playing a bigger role in the story. The only time that you really get to see Trauma Team in the game is at the start where you're saving Sandra Dorset, where you have to lay her down and Trauma Team comes in and saves her. And of course, another point in the story, which I'm not really going to talk about because that's kind of spoilers and whatnot. But those are the only 2 points that you actually see Trauma Team. They don't do anything else in the game. It's not like if you kill a civilian or you do anything in the story that Trauma Team actually comes down. They have no real effect in the story at all. Now, my favorite one runs great on last gen. All the time CD Projekt Red was talking about how it ran great on last gen, and they even made a trailer promising people that it was going to run great on last gen. But in reality, it ran terribly on last gen. But yeah, that was another promise that they made, and it's absolutely my favorite one. Game is ready when finished, alright? This is another promise that they made. Yeah, the game is not finished at all. I mean, it's a little bit better now, alright, now that it's October of 2021. But when this game first released, it wasn't even the bare minimum, alright? The game didn't even meet bare minimum, alright? It was like in the beta phase, alright? That's what the game looked like, alright? It wasn't finished at all. It wasn't even close to being finished. So that's another one. In-depth character customization. Now this is another one that they promised was going to be super unique and in-depth and whatnot. In reality, it's pretty basic. There isn't a lot that you can do. It's pretty simple, really. You can customize a couple things here and there. You can customize your head, your fingernails, your hair, just simple stuff like that, some tattoos, some cyberware and whatnot, but it's not really that in depth. You're not able to customize your character's weight, their height, anything like that, what you would expect to be in an RPG, it's not there. And so the in-depth character customization isn't really there at all. It's just a basic character customization. Gun customization, which was another feature that they promised, where they were just like, hey, you can customize all these different guns and they can look completely different. Gun customization isn't in the game at all. If they consider adding silencers and different reticles to your guns, customizing, then Call of Duty is a literal saint, alright? It's literally the most bare minimum gun customization I've ever seen. There is no type of customization at all. It's very bare minimum. There's nothing to it. You can just add reticles and silencers to it, and that's really it. But overall, there's still more promises that they made, and I would love to go into them, but that's a lot. Okay, there's a lot. This is just the big ones, all right? This is the big ones that everybody talks about. There are plenty more that they just still haven't made up to yet. Now, I don't want to be super negative about the game, because under all of it, there is something truly special about Cyberpunk. It isn't all that bad. A lot of it, yes, it isn't as what it was supposed to be or advertised, but there are still some features about the game and still some things about the game that I still really like. And I know that can be salvaged throughout further updates and future updates throughout the game. The very first thing that I want to talk about is the city. Night City is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever seen in a game, ever, just period. Night City is truly a city that is breathtaking. See what I did there? It's truly beautiful. It's one of the most pretty cities I've ever seen. I just wish the game just ran better, because I would love to see Night City in its full potential. It's clear that CD Projekt Red put a lot of care and love inside of Night City. It's there, you can see it. Countless work hours have been put into Night City itself, and it's still there, you can see it, but it's not at its full potential, and that's what truly makes me sad. Even the lore for the game is incredibly detailed. I cannot comprehend the amount of detail that CD Projekt Red put into the lore. Everything from the buildings, the advertisements, to literally everything that I can think of. The gangs, the characters, everything has its own detail. It's absolutely amazing on how much work CD Projekt Red actually put into this stuff, even though a lot of people are just going to move past it, or they're not even going to pay attention to it most of the time. That's one thing that I can really give to them. They put a lot of work inside of the city and lore. Even though the clothing can kind of be a bit iffy, if you look at some character builds, you'll see some people that look like absolute crackheads. But overall, the clothing is some of my favorite in video games. I might be a little bit biased on this, but the cyberpunk genre is one of my favorite genres. I just love how the clothing works and what the style looks like. So personally, I love the clothing for the entire game. It's so cool to look at. I just love the flashiness of it. It's amazing in my opinion. I just love the clothing. Now, probably one of my favorite things about the game is the soundtrack. I can't think of one bad song out of the soundtrack. Every single song on the entire soundtrack is an absolute banger. Like every single time I turn on the radio in different cars, they all just sound great. It has a sense of aesthetic and detail into it that I can't think of any other games that really tried. I mean, there are other games that tried making their own soundtrack, but they don't sound as good as Cyberpunk. And it really shows that the people who worked on the music in Cyberpunk really cared about the details in the world, and they wanted to make sure that it fit inside of the aesthetic of Cyberpunk 2077. Ripper Doc upgrades are another thing that had a lot of attention put into them. I mean, like literally everything in the Ripper Doc upgrades, like the blade arms are incredibly cool. I like to call them the stabby death arms, because that's what they do. That's really cool. I like that. That's a really cool feature. Same with the tendon legs, where you can jump super high. That's another cool feature. And I think my favorite thing about it is it's not forced down your throat. You don't have to get these upgrades to play the game. They're just there if you want to use them. So if you want to play the game completely normally without any type of upgrades, you can do that. But if you want to get those upgrades, those are completely optional, and they can completely spice up the gameplay, which is a really cool option and feature to Cyberpunk. Even better, the car interiors are incredibly detailed. Even on PS4, when this game first came out, each and every single one of the car interiors are heavily detailed. Like literally every single thing about them, I can't think of a part where it looked bad. Like every single car interior absolutely looked amazing. Like, every single detail about it was down to the point. Like, whoever made the car details in this game deserves a raise, alright? Whoever that was, you're amazing. And of course, on top of that, I really enjoyed the side quests in Cyberpunk 2077. They were some of the coolest side quests that I've played. There's a ton of them, and literally they're constantly being added as you're playing. So there's always an incentive to keep doing them, although there are a lot of repeats with, like, essentially like the psycho bosses. I think that's what they're called. I'm sorry, I haven't played the game in months, but you get what I'm saying. But a lot of them are very different. One of my favorite ones is the one where you're talking to a monk and you have to go after a couple Maelstrom dudes and help his brother out because they kidnapped him and were going to completely mess him up. And in the game, monks don't believe in cybernetic upgrades, so I found that pretty cool. And there are a bunch of different side quests like that throughout the entire game. There are a ton of cool ones that have a lot of detail and interesting lore behind them. I think what my favorite part about all of it is that it's not the main story, so you get a slice of Night City and Cyberpunk, and it's just a complete whole different story. So it leaves your mind and your imagination to roam free, to imagine what these people's lives are like, and it allows you to think about stuff like that. So I find that stuff very cool, and they put a lot of work into that. But even though the game had a bunch of bugs and glitches, all that stuff is still pretty cool, and it didn't really ruin that type of experience for me. Now we move on to the story. Now, I wouldn't say I have a lot of issues with the story altogether, but I still feel a certain way about the story, alright? Now, overall, Johnny Silverhand carried this entire story for me. It's not because I'm a Keanu Reeves fan, but because Johnny Silverhand is the only character that sticks with you throughout the entire story. And that's a shame, alright? Because a lot of these characters are really well wrote. I can't think of a character that I genuinely disliked throughout the entire thing. CD Projekt Red didn't let a lot of them have enough screen time throughout the entire thing. I'm not even talking about side quests, I'm talking about main quests here. But characters like Jackie, Rogue, Judy, Panam, all don't really get their perfect screen time, so you can fully see their characters develop and actually grow a sense of connection with them. They are there for a certain amount of time, but you don't really get to see them all that much. Granted, there are some other characters that are there more than others, but you don't really get that sense of appreciation for them like you do Johnny Silverhand throughout the entire thing, because Johnny is there with you throughout the entire adventure, throughout the entire story. He doesn't ever leave, unlike the other characters do. But overall, the story was very boring in my opinion. Now, let me just say the very first part of this game is absolutely incredible. It's one of my favorite intros of all time. I know I talked about the life paths not really changing anything, but the very first time that you play this game and you start getting interested and you start seeing the entire world of Night City, it's really amazing just seeing the entire world just evolve around you as you play. It's super cool to see, but as I kept playing and I got to the very first heist, that's when I started losing interest. Obviously, I don't want to get into spoilers or ruin the entire game for anybody, but essentially how I felt, the game just felt bland afterwards. It almost felt like CD Projekt Red started running out of ideas. That's kind of like what I felt like. Overall, Cyberpunk was a game with high ambitions and high expectations, but unfortunately the game came out half-baked. Overpromised and underwhelming, December 10th will mark a sad day on everyone's calendar. So now the date is October 25th, 2021. I've had this script written up since April 26th, 2021. So it's been a couple months ever since all this happened, so a lot of this information may seem old. I haven't really heard anything too crazy that has come out about CD Projekt Red, so everything that I'm about to say is essentially the big news stories that were talked about earlier this year. So CD Projekt Red had a very, very bad start to their year. Starting it off, they were hacked, and the source code to both The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 were leaked. But there was a bunch of rumors that came out. I don't exactly know which ones were true. Obviously, I'm not going to state anything on that because there wasn't any type of information out there that really gave me any idea of what happened to the source code, but it was for certain that CD Projekt Red did get hacked. But not only that, CD Projekt Red was hit with a lot of lawsuits also in January, which didn't really combine well with the hacking that went on, and they had a ton of lawsuits on their hands. So with these two things combined, it wasn't a good time in January. Of course, not only on top of the lawsuits and the hacking, plenty of people were still refunding their games, including the people on PlayStation, which the loss for CD Projekt Red was about $51 million in total. So far, this hasn't been a very good month for CD Projekt Red. Obviously, you know, they've been going through a lot, but of course, not everything was typically bad for CD Projekt Red. They released a couple updates here and there. They gave a roadmap, which was horrible. It wasn't really the best roadmap. Then eventually they released an apology video. It was okay. I mean, it was nice to see that they were kind of taking blame, but still they knew what they were doing essentially. So that's why a lot of people definitely weren't happy with it when they released that video. And of course, more news stories would come out in January and a little bit afterwards. And one of the biggest stories that came out around this time is how the 48-minute gameplay demo from 2018 was fake. It was all rendered. None of it was real gameplay. And I think it was incredibly shocking to a lot of people because although it's not entirely unheard of that, you know, development companies will make fake gameplays, but the fact that they were able to do it so well still surprises me altogether. Although I'm not praising them for, you know, essentially making a fake gameplay, but I gotta give them credit where credit is due. It looked really good nevertheless. And another thing would come out where the developers would inevitably say that they thought the original release date, the April 16th, 2020 release date, they originally thought that was a joke until CD Projekt Red basically said, yeah, we gotta make this game right now. Yeah, I bet that was a lot of fun for them. I just want to apologize to all the developers out there. I couldn't imagine what that was like. But of course, like most developments, one of the biggest stories before the game released was the crunch time. As we all know, 2020 wasn't the best year. You know, COVID was easily one of the hardest hitting things that happened. With people not being able to work for those first few months, crunch time was mandatory. You know, people were working from home and they were working really hard on this game. You know, they were putting days, you know, weeks, hours into this game. But however, that was pretty much it for all the major news that came out. There was obviously a couple more things that came out afterwards, but for the most part, that was all the big things. Leading up to now, there hasn't been too many stories about the game itself, obviously. Plenty more updates are coming out. They just announced that they're releasing the next-gen version in 2022. Specifically early 2022, they pushed it back, they delayed it, which is kind of ironic as times before. But obviously a couple more updates came out. A really big one came out not too long ago. But that's essentially it. Not too much has really come out, nothing too crazy or anything like that. That was essentially the gist of the entire thing in the aftermath of the release. So yeah, we're all caught up now, and we are finally here. CD Projekt Red's reputation has completely been demolished. The release of Cyberpunk 2077 completely ruined that for them. And it's going to take a very, very long time for CD Projekt Red to essentially rebuild their name and rebuild their brand before they make anything new. The damage has already been done, and CD Projekt Red officially paid the price. Or did they? Well guys, that's it. The start of Cyberpunk leading up to now. I just want to say that this video has been a wild ride, and it's taken me a very, very long time to make this video. I really hope you all enjoyed this video because I put a lot of work into it. I enjoyed making it. It was a lot of fun. So please like and subscribe. Comment down below what you think, but I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think about Cyberpunk. Did you enjoy the game? Do you think there's going to be a future for the game? Do you think the multiplayer is ever going to come out? I don't know. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think about the future of Cyberpunk 2077. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.